Hello, hello. Welcome back to Life After Plus One. I'm Leanne, your podcast host and your single parent mentor and coach. And today we're going to talk about an important topic. I think this topic is so important. If anything, the most important topic of when you go through a breakup. And that is the difference between healing and working through everything and the difference between staying hurt or just staying where you are and just keep soldiering on and keep moving through everything. So I am going to touch on that topic today. But just before I do, a quick little reminder for anyone that is here listening. If you're listening in real time as this has gone to air, I currently have 20% off all coaching in a lovely little special mid-year sale. So if you are listening to this and you've thought about coaching, you've thought about some extra support to help you through this part of your life, and coaching can help in so many ways. And the thing is, when you're a single parent and you're going through your breakup, realistically, in one sense of it, everyone's going through the same thing. But on the flip side of it, everyone is going through something so different. As a whole, it's so similar. But when you break it down, everyone's story is unique. And that's why coaching is tailored to you and what you are going through, whether that be dealing with a high conflict ex, the co-parenting struggles, you're about to head into a legal battle and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're scared, you don't know how to approach it, whether it's just anything to do with communication with your ex, every time you interact, you fight, you argue, you bicker, and you don't know how to put an end to it. Maybe you're sick of the dating world and you're constantly going through the same struggles over and over again and you don't know how to get out of this cycle. Anything at all that you are going through as a single parent, whether it be you're wanting to find what lights you up again, you're wanting to do something completely different, but you don't know how to approach it. This is where I can help you with coaching. It is about getting your life back. It is about rebuilding you. It is about finding your purpose again, because this is something that I cannot emphasize enough. When you go through your breakup is not the destination. Your breakup is not, okay, I've done this, I've got through this, I'm done, I'm good. Your breakup, it's like your wake-up call to something bigger and better. This is your time to find something that lights you up. Your breakup was like the universe saying to you, hey, hold on a second. This relationship is not working. This relationship is not lighting you up anymore. And you need to find what does, because you've put your career goals on hold. You've put your business on hold. You've put your life on hold. You've put everything on hold for this relationship that has just shitted on you or has just destroyed you. And now, as hard as it is to go through this breakup, we all know how difficult it is to go through a breakup as a single parent. There's no denying that. But use this breakup to your advantage. And when I say use it to your advantage, I mean, don't just go through your breakup and think, okay, that was hard, that was horrible, I'm just going to continue my life as normal. Because that's not what you want. You don't want to go back to living your life exactly how you did in the relationship, because there's a good chance there was something happening there in that pattern as to why that relationship didn't work. Now, that's not about blaming you. That's about recognizing there was something in your life that wasn't working. Now it's time to find it. Now it's time to identify it. Now it's time to live your life in a way that truly excites you. And that is what coaching is about. And we will find that. It's time to find what lights you up. So on that note, we're going to jump into today's episode. It's always a tongue twister when I say that, today's episode, and talk about the difference between healing and staying hurt and just trying to bottle it up and pretend like it's not there. Welcome to the Life After Plus One podcast, where we turn life's lemons into delightful lemonade. Get ready for inspiring stories, uplifting conversations, and all the tips and tricks to rock your single parent journey with style. I'm your host, Leanne, and it's time to embrace the adventure of Life After Plus One. So let's dive in. So what's the difference? What is the difference between healing and just letting it go and just managing on your own? Now, I can tell you, when I have someone that messages me, when I have someone that comments on my content, or when I see people on social media, I can tell straight away who has done the work and who has not. Because you can tell the people that have not, they're the ones that are still hurt. And you can tell they're hurt in the way they message. Now, this is not me being disrespectful or nasty. It's me just pointing out a fact of what I see. This is a pattern and behavior of what I see when people comment or when people reach out. Because you can see that they're still hurt. You can see that they're still holding on to the emotions. And it's more often than not those people that are angry at their ex, they haven't healed. It's the people that are angry at all men or all women, they haven't healed. It's the people that are saying they're never going to get through this. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. They're stuck. Their life is over. They haven't healed. It's people that are commenting from that perspective. You can tell straight away they haven't healed, and more often than not, they don't want to. Unless they're actually seeing something that's not working in their life, then more often than not, they will stay in that mode. And this is, again, no disrespect to anyone, but quite often it is easier for people to play that victim, because for some people, that's a good way to get attention. That's a good way to feel their comfort. That's a good way to just accept what's happened. It wasn't my fault. It was their fault. They did that. I'm the victim here, which maybe you were. I'm not denying that you haven't done anything wrong or that they were the person that was wrong. I'm not taking sides in this. But when you stay in that victim mentality, they're the people that don't want to move forward because they think that they don't need to because they're the victim. They haven't done anything wrong. But the thing is, healing is not about identifying who's wrong or who's right. Healing and working through things and letting go and moving on is about saying, I deserve better. And that's the difference. And I think that's where so many people get stuck and so many people get confused when it comes to the process of letting go and healing and moving on and doing everything else and doing the work on themselves. I think I don't need to do that because I haven't done anything wrong. I can't change my ex. So what's the point? And that's a comment I hear all too often. I haven't done anything. It's my ex's fault. I can't change them. This process is never about changing your ex. This process is about looking at you and looking, okay, what can we do differently? Let's take the blinkers off here. Let's unwrap everything and look at what is it in your life that's not working, that we can look at why, and let's make it work. It's like when you're having problems with your car and you hear it rattling or you hear something wrong with it. It's making noises. You don't just go, it's okay, we'll just keep going and we keep going and we keep going. You look at what's wrong. You look at why it's not working properly. You get it fixed. You look into it. But the thing is, with people, with ourselves, it doesn't get done as much. It's like we'll just overlook that. But then when that gets overlooked, you're just piling more and more and more stuff on top. Because just like when you go and get your car fixed, when you hear something wrong or you notice it's not working well, when you notice in yourself that maybe you're not handling situations well, when you're not responding as well as you could, when you're not showing up as well as you could, when you're not being confident as well as you could be, these are signs that maybe you need to step back and give yourself a little bit of TLC, just like you would your car when that's starting to make some noises. So that's the important thing that I want you all to remember when it comes to healing. It's not about fixing anybody else. It's not about changing what happened in the past. Nothing in the past can be changed. It's about understanding yourself and looking at what you can do differently. Because realistically, even though your ex may have been the person that have broken the relationship, or maybe they were the one that did something wrong. But as I just touched on, when you peel everything back, there is a good chance that there was something else happening. There was underlying issues that maybe you overlooked. Maybe there were things that were happening in that relationship that you just let slide. You didn't talk about them because you wanted to keep the peace. Why did you not have the confidence to speak up? Why did you not have the confidence to communicate things? Why did you not feel comfortable with your own partner to want to talk about what wasn't working in the relationship? Because realistically, that is what creates a healthy relationship. Being able to talk about things, being able to approach your partner about something that you're not happy about or something that's not working. It's not about just staying quiet to keep the peace. So these are things that we will look at when it comes to coaching and when it comes to healing. It's looking at, why did you not feel comfortable or confident to speak up? Why did you feel like you were not worthy of having a voice? Why did you not feel like you were worthy of being treated as an equal partner in the relationship? Why did you feel like maybe you could just ignore all those red flags? Maybe you knew there were so many things in that relationship that weren't working, but you just tolerated it. You just thought, I'll just put up with it. That's fine. You settled. There's all these things that happen in relationships that lead up to the breakup, which in hindsight, when you look back, you can say, okay, maybe I did tolerate things that I shouldn't have. Maybe I did overlook too many things. Maybe if I was confident enough in myself, I would have ended that relationship years ago instead of them doing the dirty on me and I'm the one stuck with a broken heart. That's what it's about. It's about actually looking back at the situation and understanding, okay, if I was more confident in myself, would I handle that the same way or would I handle it very differently? Because this is what we do in coaching and this is what healing is all about. It's about getting your self-worth back. It's about believing in yourself again. It's about being confident in yourself so you know that you deserve better. And that is the main thing here. That is a huge part of it. And the sad thing is there are so many people I speak to and come across in my line of work where people just don't think that they do deserve better. They think that this is as good as it gets. And it's quite often a pattern you see when you first go through your breakup and you first become a single parent and then you step back into the dating world. And it's very common to see that pattern where single parents settle because they've gone through that first breakup where they first became a single parent. Their confidence has gone to the shit. They're not feeling good in themselves. Because they haven't dated in maybe 20, 30 years. It's been a long time since they've been in the dating world. And so they just think this is as good as it gets. And they're not confident enough in themselves to realize that I don't have to just accept any relationship. I can say no to something that's not healthy. I can say no to somebody that doesn't align with me. I can say no to someone that has red flags. But quite often when you don't believe in yourself, when you don't have that confidence, you're willing to overlook all those things because they're a nice person. But as I always say, being nice in a relationship, meeting somebody who is nice, that is bare minimum. And I'm going to say this, nobody here who is listening to this should be settling for the bare minimum. You all deserve so much better, especially after what you have been through to get to where you are today. Bare minimum is not what you should be aiming for. Because everybody is nice when you first meet them. You don't want just nice. If you meet someone that's nice, but they've got a few other things about them that you don't like, you're seeing these red flags, you're seeing these things that you don't think you want in a partner, but you're like, I'll overlook it because they're nice. And let me ask you this. How many people, when you first meet them, are not nice? That's the thing. Pretty much everyone you meet at the start is going to be nice. It's eventually when you get to know them more, and that's when their true colors come out. But then you overlook those true colors because they're nice. There is no more settling when it comes to dating. Because this is, again, what I'm going to keep coming back to, because this is the topic of this episode, is this is the whole point in healing and working through this. Because when you have healed and you have worked through this and you have built your confidence up and you have built that self-belief up in yourself again, then you're willing to not just settle. You know that I deserve more than nice. I deserve way more than bare minimum. I have been through enough shit in my life to settle for bare minimum. But when you're hurt, you do overlook so many of these things. But it's not just about dating. Healing is not just about to help you when it comes time to date again or stepping back into the dating world. Even though that's a huge part of it. It's huge because if you haven't let go of any of those emotions from your breakup, they're going to keep coming back out again into each new relationship you go through. Any of those triggers or anything that's come up from your breakup, it's going to come out when you least expect it in this new relationship. And this is one thing that so many people overlook. They think, okay, I've been single for a while. I must be healed now because I've allowed myself a certain amount of time. It's not time that heals your wounds. Because when you're just on your own, when you're living your comfortable life, when you're just doing your standard everyday things, work, maybe gym, kids stuff, you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're getting out of your comfort zone, or you're not putting yourself in a situation where you might feel triggered. You're just living your everyday comfortable life. Nothing wrong with that. There's no disrespect to that. But you're not getting pushed. You're not out of your comfort zone. It's not until you start dating again and you meet new people, you meet people that have got their own wounds. And then all of a sudden you're confronted with these situations that are out of your comfort zone, and that's when your triggers come up again. So that's why so many people think that they're healed, because you're healed because you're not in a situation where it's allowing your triggers to come up again. You're in your everyday life where you're not having to face this hurt. You're just living comfortably. It's not until you're faced with the dating world again, or a difficult situation with your co-parent, or some other challenging situation where you realize, here we go. Here come these wounds again. They are not going to go anywhere. And that is why I just mentioned, when you step back into the dating world, this is why it's so common for those wounds to come back out again, because you're getting put in that uncomfortable position. You're getting put in a position where you could quite possibly be triggered, and your emotions will be tested. And that's when you know when you have healed or not. And if you haven't, that's why it's so common to keep repeating that same cycle, because you're not working through all that hurt. You're not understanding what's happening. You're not understanding what you can maybe do differently going into the new relationship. You're just repeating those same patterns, hoping a new person will fix it. And this is why it's so important to heal. Because no new partner is going to fix your hurt from the past. No new partner is going to fix your triggers. They can support you through things. They can hold your hands and be understanding of what you're going through. But it's not their job to fix you. It's not their job to heal you. Nobody wants to date a guinea pig. Nobody wants to date an experiment or somebody they've got to fix, even though quite a lot of people I know do that. Guilty. I know I've done that at one stage. You think you can fix them. You think you can make their life better. It is not your job to fix anybody, especially if they're not at a place where they're seeing fault in themselves and they don't see anything in themselves that needs fixing. The only way somebody else is going to get fixed, so to speak, is when they recognize it themselves, when they see the patterns in themselves that they don't like. I don't like this anymore. I need to do something about this. This is not working for me. Then fine, you can maybe support them through that, or you can maybe help them when it comes to getting coaching with myself or therapy or something else. But you do not want to go into the dating world overlooking so many things where you think somebody can help fix you or you can help fix somebody else. Now, another big factor when it comes to avoiding this whole healing process, working through your breakup, understanding what went wrong, is being caught up in the breakup. And a lot of people think that I'm fine, I've gotten over it, I've accepted the breakup. Now, let me tell you this, and this is another thing that gets overlooked way too often. It is one thing to accept the breakup. I've accepted it's done. I know we're not getting back together. That's a first part of it. That is only one part. The biggest part of that is actually letting go. You can say you've accepted the breakup. You can say, I accept that we're not getting back together. I understand it. Our relationship is done. I know we're not getting back together. However, actually letting go is another process altogether, because saying that you've let go and accepted it doesn't mean you're still not emotionally invested. Because what I see way too often is when I hear people say, I've accepted the breakup, but on the flip side of that, they're getting anxious when they're having to deal with their ex, when they're having to see them at pick up and drop off. They're getting worked up because they're seeing their ex has got a new partner, or they're stalking them on social media. They're getting still flustered and all anxious and worried about things that are happening. They're constantly thinking about the past. They're stewing over the breakup, wondering why was I not good enough? If you're in that headspace, no disrespect, no shame, because that is a very common process to go through, or very common part of the breakup to go through. Everyone has these emotions. But in the kindest way possible, if that's where you're at, you haven't let go. You may have accepted that you and your ex are not getting back together, but you haven't actually let go of the breakup. Because when you've let go, you have emotionally detached. When you let go, you're not getting caught up in the past. You're not waiting around for apologies. You're not waiting around for explanations. You're not trying to understand what happened. You're not trying to overanalyze your ex's behavior. You're not getting panicky or worked up at pick up and drop off. And again, there's no judgment there for anyone who does, because that is very common to go through this process when you do get anxious at handover time. When you've still got a lot of emotions there, that is very common. And that, again, is why it is so important to heal. Because when you do, you're focusing on yourself. You're focusing on that anxiety that you feel when it comes to handover time. You're focusing on all these emotions that come up when you're dealing with your ex. And that's the important part that you need to focus on. Not your ex, how this process is making you feel. What is coming up for you? What is happening in you? That is what healing is about. So when you're getting all this anxiety when it comes to handover, then there is something in you, there is emotions in you that need to be looked at, that need a bit of TLC. And that's okay. That's all part of the process. But that's the difference between healing and not healing, because it is very common for just people to think that they don't need to do anything. Eventually, time will fix it. Time will make it all better. Time may make you handle that situation a little bit differently. It doesn't just remove those emotional wounds. I can tell you that now. And it is sad to say that I hear so many stories of people that have been broken up for 10 plus years, even longer. I had someone comment on one of my posts a while ago. She said she'd broken up 20 years. And they still had conflict. She was still having conflict with her co-parent 20 years later. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine going through a co-parenting relationship where 20 years down the track you're still fighting and butting heads? This, again, is why it is so important to work through those emotions. Because do you really want that to drag on for 20 years? And again, this is not about your ex changing. Healing is not about changing your ex. Your ex is always going to be who they are. If they want to do their own little healing process, then great. That will make it even easier for you, but you can't force that. Healing is about you. Healing is about looking at how you handle that situation. Because one thing that happens a lot, and this is what, again, the whole healing process is about, is especially when you're dealing with a high conflict co-parent, like a narcissist who likes to villainize and gaslight and manipulate. You go through all this and it is a head fuck. It really is. You go through every kind of emotion you can think of and it is exhausting. There are days where you just like sobbing. You're literally sobbing, thinking, what the hell? Where am I at? How am I here in my life? And then the next day you might be thinking, maybe we can make it work. Maybe we should try get back together again. And then the next day thinking, maybe I should start dating. You just go into all these different things because you just don't know how to manage things. You've got all these emotions. You just don't know how to process everything. Everything is happening at once. So the difference is between healing and not healing when you're dealing with a high conflict co-parent is how you manage this situation. Are you going to take everything they say personally? Because that is one of the biggest things that you do when you're broken up and your confidence is at a low, your self-worth is at a low, and your ex is saying all these ridiculous names to you. They're calling you everything under the sun. They're accusing you of all this stupid stuff that you know is not true. And part of you is thinking, I need to prove myself. I need to prove it's not true. I need to prove my point. And you're taking it all personally. And this is what happens when you haven't healed. You're constantly on the back foot. You're constantly explaining yourself. You're constantly caught up in this cycle of what your ex is throwing at you. But when you have healed, you don't. You can take it with a grain of salt. It's like you've got this invisible wall up around you. And whenever they say something, it just kind of bounces straight off because it doesn't affect you anymore. But when you are hurt, that's what you want to do. You want to protect your image. You want to prove your point. You want to prove them wrong. You want to one-up them. You want to beat them. And again, no shame on that because we've all probably been there. But that's the difference with being hurt and being healed. When you are healed, you don't care. You don't give it the light of day because you know that your energy is far more productive being used towards yourself than it is being used on your ex. You don't have the energy to waste explaining yourself to your ex when you know that they're not wanting to listen to your point. They're not wanting to hear your side of the story. They're not wanting to hear you out. They don't care. They're just trying to rattle you. They're trying to get a reaction. And the more you react, the more you try to prove your point, the more you keep wanting understanding, the more you are exhausting yourself. Why? Because you're still hurt. Why? Because you're wanting that validation. Why? Because you're wanting to feel recognized. You're wanting that acknowledgement. You're wanting to feel loved. You're wanting to know that it wasn't all your fault. That is coming from a hurt headspace. But when you go through that process of healing, that's when you realize you're not going to get that validation. You're not going to get that recognition. You're not going to get that acknowledgement. You're not going to get any of that from your ex. You get it from you. And that comes when you go through that whole process of healing. And so just to clarify here, healing is not about forgetting. It's not a process of sweeping things under the carpet. It's not a process of pretending you're okay. It's not a process of distracting yourself. And most importantly, it is not a process of just thinking that time will fix everything. Healing is a process of working through everything. Working through that hurt. Working through any of those emotions that come up. And another big emotion that comes up in my line of work when I'm working with my clients is that resentment. The resentment they have towards the other parent. Maybe they're the fun parent. Maybe they've got the easy job. Maybe they don't have to do as much, or maybe whatever the situation is. But resentment towards their ex is a very common emotion I see. And again, that resentment is there because there's some underlying issue. There's some underlying hurt there as to why you have that resentment. And we're going to find that, because that's what happens when you heal. We're going to work through that. We're going to understand why you got that resentment there, and you're going to let it go. And you don't just let it go by saying, okay, I get that, I understand it. But when you understand where this resentment's coming from, it's easier to work through that. And it's easier to then move forward. It's easy to then to heal and let it go. And that is when you let go, not by accepting the breakup, by actually working through all these emotions that are coming up anytime you deal with your ex. And just going back to that whole dating scenario that I touched on earlier, another sign that I can see when people have not healed and are still carrying on to hurt are the ones that are giving up on dating. Now, I'm going to say here, I have no issues with people saying they want to step back from dating. I have no issues with people saying they're just taking their time, they're focusing on themselves. That's fine, do that. That's the best thing you can do. However, when you hear those stories of people saying, nope, I'm not dating, men are all shit, women are all this, I'm done. Anyone that's usually in that headspace, that kind of comment or that thought process is coming from a hurt headspace. Because when you have healed, you can understand these situations a bit better. Because quite often when you have reached a place where you're so fed up with the dating world that you want to give up, that's usually because you're going into the dating world with all this hurt. And you're going through this process over and over again. It's like this cycle. So you go through your breakup, and then you want to start dating as a way to kind of, you want to feel better, you want to have a partner, you don't like being alone, whatever other reason. And then it ends. And then you might go back into the dating world again, and then it ends. And then you might meet someone else. And each kind of situation, you're just getting more heartbroken, more hurt, more hurt, more hurt. It just keeps piling up. And then eventually you reach a point, it's like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not dealing with this anymore. And then you step back, you take some time, and then you might go back into it again. And then you go back into it again thinking, okay, maybe it's different this time. You've had a bit of a break. Maybe it's different. But then the same thing happens again. It's like, fuck this, I'm done. I'm out. I'm giving up. There is no one out there for me. The thing is, there is someone out there for you. But when you're not approaching it with the right headspace, you're going to keep going through this same process. Because if you're going into relationships guarded, if you're going into relationships where you can't be open, you can't be honest, you can't be vulnerable, you can't trust somebody, you're not going in as your authentic self. You're going in as your hurt self. You want to approach the dating world feeling in a good headspace, coming from a healed headspace, not a hurt one. And that's why so many people go through this vicious cycle in the dating world. Then they get to the point, it's like, fuck it, I'm done, I'm out. And then they have a break, they go back in. It's just this cycle. It's this endless cycle. The only way to stop that cycle is if you step back and you actually acknowledge what's happening here. What is going on? And a good chance what is going on is that you've got a lot of hurt, you've got a lot of wounds, you're probably overlooking things in relationships, you're settling. Oh, they're nice, I'll try and make it work. There's endless reasons why you're going through this. And again, this is not a direct hit at you because, again, guilty. Yes, I've been there. I know what it's like. So there's no shade I'm throwing at anyone. I know what it's like. I have overlooked red flags. I have settled in relationships where I know I said, there's something about this that I don't like, but he's a nice person, so it must be right. We have all done it, I'm sure. But I can tell you now, you're going to keep going through this cycle till you can actually wake up and say, I've got to change something here. I need to stop. I need to stop. I need to look after me. I need to focus on myself. I need to refill my cup. I need to work on what's going on here. And I need to approach this very differently next time I go back into the dating world. That's what it's about. That is approaching dating from a healed headspace. And it's not just by saying that. It's by actually doing the work on yourself. It's actually by looking at what you can do differently when you approach it again. It's about looking at what went wrong in those previous relationships. And it's never about pointing the finger. It's about understanding something in yourself. Because this is one thing that I cannot emphasize enough when it comes to going to a breakup. It's about understanding or learning something from that breakup that you can take away from that. What is a lesson in yourself that you can learn from that breakup? That is one of the best things you can do. What can you learn from that breakup? And it's very easy to go to a breakup and just think, well, that hurt. I'm upset. And you just get all wounded. You just get all emotional. You get sad, which you have every right to. But if you're not actually looking at it from the mind frame of, okay, that really hurt. I wasn't expecting that, but what can I do differently next time? What can I learn from that? And the biggest thing you will notice when you approach the dating world from more of a healed headspace than a hurt headspace is that when you go to a breakup, when you're feeling hurt, you take it very personally. And quite often that's when you see people, they go through that cycle of wanting to maybe seek revenge. They may want to message their ex's new partner and tell them about them, or there's all these things, or they might want to keep messaging them and ask why, what happened, or they might want to keep chasing them to try and make it work. Now, again, there's no disrespect to anybody that has done that or is possibly still in that process now. But the thing is, that is a hurt headspace. The only way to get out of that mentality is to actually work on you. Because when you do go to a breakup, when you are healed and you don't have all this hurt, you don't take things so personally, you're able to actually step out of a breakup and say, okay, that was shit, but I get it. He wasn't my person or she wasn't my person. That's it. That's okay. I see that. It was good. It was fun. It is what it is. And I'm going to keep trying. That's how you approach a breakup when you are healed. You can accept it for what it is. You can accept that's not your person. You can accept that was a fun time or that was a nice date. Maybe if it was just one date, maybe it was a few months, maybe it was a year, however long it was. But if you go on a first date with someone and instead of feeling rejected when they message you the next day and say, thank you for that was nice, but you weren't my person. Where a lot of people, when you're coming from a hurt headspace, you will take that very personally. You want to know why. And quite often you see that a lot. People message why, what went wrong, what happened, can we just give it another shot? But when you're from a more healed headspace, you can take that on board. You don't take it personally. It's like, okay, that's fine. I don't need to match with everybody. That's not my person. I'm not going to force anything. If they don't think that I'm their person, then I accept that. Somebody else out there is my person. That is the difference between being hurt and being healed. Being hurt is usually when you force relationships to work. You cling to people. You want to know why. You want people to like you. But when you're approaching it from a healed headspace, you want to find someone that you like. That's the difference. When you're dating hurt, you want them to like you. When you're dating healed, you want to like them. That's the difference. And that's where you all need to get to. You don't want to be chasing people to like you. You want to find someone that you like. You want to find someone that fits into your world. You want to find someone that fits into your bubble nicely with you and your kids. You don't want to force yourself to fit into somebody else's world. That's the idea. Now, the thing is, you can be listening to this and you might be saying, yeah, well, obviously, healing, it's a no-brainer. It's what we all should be doing. Yeah, 100%, I agree. But a large portion of people do not. I would say the majority of people do not. It's probably a small percentage of people that actually take the time to step back and reflect, to actually take the time to step back and work on themselves. And more often than not, it usually takes a very toxic breakup to get somebody to that point where they're actually like, okay, I need to do something different. And it usually is. It's never usually just a simple breakup where people say, okay, I want to self-reflect. I want to work on me. I mean, hey, sometimes it is. But more often than not, it takes a very toxic breakup and a very low rock bottom for people to say, okay, I need to do something different here. But the reason why so many people don't, because one, a lot of people don't think they need to. A lot of people are just happy to keep going the way they are. And two, because for a lot of people, going through that healing process is uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is doing what you know, doing what is currently happening for you and where you're currently living life is what you know. You may know it's not working. You may know it has its faults. You may know that it keeps ending up the same way. But doing something different is very uncomfortable. But the thing is, it's also very rewarding. And that's what coaching is. It's helping you rewire and reframe the way you handle situations. It's helping you look at your situation from a more positive perspective where you can handle it in a way that's going to benefit you, not in a way that's going to keep you stuck. That is a process of healing. Looking at how you can handle something differently, looking at everything else, all your emotions and everything that comes up, and then knowing how to work through that, knowing how to handle it, and knowing how to show up differently in a way where you're not going to fall back into that cycle again. Now, in saying that, this is not an overnight process. You're not just going to read a book or come to me and have one session with me and then all of a sudden you're like, boom, I get it, that's it. It is a process of reframing your thoughts. It is a process of understanding these patterns. It is a process of actually knowing how to show up differently. And yes, once you know it, you don't just all of a sudden, it just happens automatically. It's like with anything in life, you're still going to slip back into old patterns. That's why it's so beneficial to have that ongoing support that can help keep you on the right track. Because it's like anything we do in life. Like with anything, if you're playing a sport, just let's say, for example, netball. You play netball, but if you're not getting coaching, are you going to get any better? Are you going to learn to do things differently? Are you going to learn to shoot goals differently? Are you going to learn to attack? You're just going to keep doing what you know. But same with life, same with how you show up, same with how you handle situations. If you're not getting that extra support, if you're not getting shown what to do, are you going to do it differently? Are you going to know how to do it differently? Or are you just going to keep showing up the same way? And that is why so many people don't go through that process of healing, because it is uncomfortable to do something different. It is uncomfortable to step out and do something that you're not used to doing. Even though what you're doing or doing it differently is not bad, there's nothing wrong with it because it definitely leads to a more positive outcome. But just that something that's a little bit different is uncomfortable. And that's like a lot of people that I speak to, a lot of my clients that I've worked with, they've come back to me and they're like, Leanne, setting those boundaries was really uncomfortable. That made me feel uncomfortable. And it will. It will. Doing something differently and showing up differently with your co-parent for the first time and doing that, setting those boundaries and speaking up when you maybe haven't done that your whole relationship or your whole co-parenting life, and all of a sudden you've started to set boundaries, it will be uncomfortable. Not because it's bad, not because you're doing anything wrong, because you haven't done it before. And you're showing up differently. But I can guarantee you, once you keep going, once you keep learning how to do it, once you keep showing up in that way, it does become easier. Like anything in life, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and it just becomes a part of life. It becomes a natural way of how you handle things and how you respond and how you react and how you show up. And that is what's important. And that is what we do in coaching, and that is what healing's about. Working through all that hurt. So instead of taking things personally, instead of getting triggered, instead of getting worked up, instead of wanting all these explanations, it's about believing in yourself to say, I deserve better than that. I'm not even going to engage. I'm not even going to engage. It's like when you see all these people on social media and they're fighting, or just even something like when you see people on the street or people in cars tooting and swearing at each other. It's like, why are you angry? And that's just it. They're not happy people. A happy person doesn't feel the need to just yell at some random stranger in their car or do whatever else. These are hurt people. Hurt people, hurt people. End of story. And I know there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more underlying issues there. But that's just it. The more hurt you hold on to, the more hurt you keep piling up, eventually it comes out. And maybe it is to somebody else in another car that's in front of you or behind you or wherever else. Is that the way you want to handle situations? Now, I'm not saying you're someone that's going to get abusive to another car, but this is part of what happens when you don't deal with your emotions, when you just do keep bottling things up and you just pretend like you're fine when deep down you know you're not. That is the difference between staying hurt and healing. When you are healed, you don't get so triggered. You don't take things so personally. It's like now when I see people and they just cut me off or they just do something stupid when I'm driving, I'm just like, did that make you feel better? Did that make you feel good? Now, obviously, I'm not yelling it out to them, but I'm just saying that to myself in my car. Did that really make you feel good? Because there's no need to yell. There's no need to fight. There's no need to swear. Where is that going to get you in life? Nowhere. But the thing is, when you are so hurt and you're holding on to all that, it's like you want that. You want to prove that point that you were right. It's like you're constantly seeking that validation. You're constantly seeking that assurance, that reassurance, I should say, that you haven't done anything wrong. So you've got to prove them wrong just to make sure that you know that you're right. It's like when you see people post some stupid stuff on Facebook. God, some people post some really stupid stuff, don't they? It's like, are you that bored? Just like those parking posts and people complaining about how people park. It's like, seriously? Is that what we've become as a society, where you've just got to fucking take photos of the way people park and put it on Facebook? And it's a scary world that we're in at the moment. And I'm constantly having conversations with my daughter because she's now at that age, she's 13, which she likes to go down to the park and hang out with friends and stuff and do all that kind of stuff. And I'm constantly having conversations with her saying, darling, please be careful with who you hang out with. Please be careful that you're not doing anything stupid when you're out in public. Please be super careful, because there are so many goddamn Karens out there that you do the smallest thing wrong and someone your age, boom, they'll take a photo of you and put it on Facebook. And that's how scary it is. And I know I've gone off on a tangent here, but that's the world that we live in, where so many people just hurt and angry and just want to be acknowledged. It's like, just calm down. Calm down. And it is a shame that I feel like I've got to constantly bubble wrap my daughter. Well, not bubble wrap her, but constantly have this endless conversation with her about what happens when she goes out if she does the smallest thing wrong. Like, I know back in my day, I've had many conversations with my daughter. Like, we are so lucky. I think I grew up in the best generation where we used to go clubbing, mobile phones. I think we had our phones, but it was just like Snake. Back in those days, who's with me on that era? We just had Snake on our phone, the standard text, the standard call. That's it. There was no taking photos. There was no Facebook. There was none of that. We just went, maybe there was Facebook. I don't know. But if it wasn't on our phone. And we just got up to the craziest shit. I'd go out underage. I was 17 on my sister's ID. I had the fucking time of my life in that era. And do you know what? There was no social media to point it out or to say I was doing wrong. Loved it. Anyway, I've gone on a total tangent then, because this podcast is talking about hurt or healed, but then I just had to share that. But this is my whole point though, when you see so many hurt people, and those hurt people are the ones that are wanting to hurt other people. Those are the ones that want to prove people wrong. Those are the ones that want to just make a scene and make a name. Because why? They're wanting that recognition in themselves. They're wanting to feel better in themselves. They're wanting to feel important. And that is why, again, it is so important to heal. So important to work through your emotions and not just bottle things up. And one other really important point that I want to focus on here, those people that don't heal, that stay in that little hurt bubble, those are the ones that have that, I know I touched on it before, that whole poor me mentality, that victim mentality, but those are the ones that are always stuck in the past. They're complaining about their past situation. They're complaining about what happened. They're complaining about what so-and-so did to them. Or I can't do that because that's not possible. That'll never happen for me. I can't do that. Like all those kinds of thoughts, it's always negative because they're still so hurt. I can't see anything good happening to me. That's not possible. Of course it's possible. But you've got to get out of this mentality of being so hurt. You've got to get out of this mentality of being stuck in the past. You're not going to move forward if you're constantly stuck and wounded and hurt from things that happened in the past. Let go of that. Work through that and focus on moving forward. Because the biggest sign that you know that you're healing is one when you're actually looking at, why did this happen to me? What can I learn from this? What can I do differently? How can I show up differently? How can I handle this differently? These are things that you start asking yourself when you're going through or when you're starting to heal. But when you're still hurt, it's why me? It's always me. I'm not good enough. I can't do that. That is hurt mentality. It's all my ex's fault. I'm never going to get through this. I don't deserve better. That is hurt mentality. And I promise you, you can get out of that. It's all about your headspace. It's all about your outlook. But you're not going to change that outlook if you keep staying in that comfortable bubble that you're in where you keep doing what you're doing. If you want to have a different outlook, if you want to handle things differently, then you need to show up differently. You need to start looking at what you're doing and how you're handling things and how things are impacting you. And you need to work through those emotions, which is something a lot of people don't like doing. But it does make a massive difference for the better. Healing is not just about your ex. Healing is not just about handling things with your co-parent in a different way. I mean, yes, that is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it because when you have worked through those emotions, you're not getting triggered anymore. You're not getting anxious. You're not getting jealous if they got a new partner. You're like, that's good. They can have them. That's a mentality you're in when your ex gets a new partner. You're not stalking their new partner or seeing what they're doing. You're like, okay, that's their problem now. Good luck. You have them. It's like there was this reel going around on Instagram. I think it was the Australian Love Island, one of those episodes, I think. And it was about this girl who was talking. I know I've gone on a tangent again, so I'm sorry, but I want to say this. And one of the other girls took a guy off this other girl. And then the host, I think it was Sophie Monk because it was Australian one. I'm sure it was. And she asked the girl, how do you feel about that? Or what's your reaction? Or something along those lines. Like, don't quote me verbatim here, but it was something like that. And she said, she didn't take my man. She took my problem. Boom. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about. When you're hurt, you're fighting. Why did you take my man, bitch? Why did you this? I mean, mind you, it goes for both genders. It's not just women on men. But, you're not fighting to get someone back who's just left you because you know you're worthy of someone who's not just going to ditch you for somebody else. That is a healed headspace. When you're hurt, you're fighting, you're clinging, you're wanting to make it work. That is the difference. So just remember, the process of healing is about looking inwards. Looking at you, looking at what you can learn, looking at how you can show up differently, looking at your emotions. Because if you just keep pushing everything to the side, you're just watching reels, you're listening to podcasts, you might be reading a few things here and there, but if you're not doing anything differently, nothing is going to change. It's one thing to listen to everything, to watch everything, to see everything, but you've actually got to implement what you're hearing. And that is where coaching comes in. That is where someone like myself comes in. To help you through this process. It is a beautiful process. And the thing is, This is something that I want all of you to really take note of. Healing isn't something you do in maybe a few weeks with me. Healing is an ongoing process. And you might be thinking, what the fuck, Leanne? I'm not in this for life. I'm out. I'm done. It is. And it may not be something that you want to hear. You don't just start going through a breakup and understand this and you're like, yep, I'm done. It is a lifelong process. When you actually start looking inwards and you start looking at how you show up and you start looking at the way you behave and the way you react, you start to realize this isn't just something that affects your breakup. This impacts everything in your life. And the more situations you go through, the more you're actually learning about. Because we are constantly being challenged in life. We are constantly being pushed out of a comfort zone. We are constantly being tested in life. And the idea is just to not go through one breakup, work through it, understand it. Okay, yep, I'm good. I'm going to keep going through life. It's about actually constantly reflecting, constantly looking inwards, constantly looking at how you can show up differently, constantly looking at why you're reacting certain ways, constantly looking at why did I respond like that? That's the whole process of healing. And the idea of coaching is to get the ball rolling with that. Now, you can constantly keep going. I have many beautiful clients that just keep coming back to me and we keep working together. And I love that. But the idea is to actually keep working through that. When you get to a place when you can actually recognize that in yourself, then spread your wings and go and do it. But until then, that is what someone like myself is here for. Because it is an ongoing journey. It is something where you're constantly going to be tested. Whether it be with breakups, your job, finances, your ex, whatever else. There's always something in life where you're going to be tested. And this is the whole process of healing. Because you're constantly looking inwards. You're constantly reflecting. You're constantly understanding yourself more. And that's the biggest part of it. Understanding yourself more. Understanding where all these emotions are coming from, understanding why you react a certain way. And I love that. I went for my walk this morning. Most of you who follow me on Instagram probably know that I do this nearly every day. And this is my quiet clock off time. Sometimes I listen to music, but more often than not, I'm listening to a podcast, or sometimes I just sit there and meditate. And today I went for my walk and I had this massive aha moment. And I was going to share it. Is it rude if I don't? I don't know if I want to share. I'm not going to share it. But I just had this massive aha moment. And that's just it. And I constantly do that. Every time I'm out there listening to a podcast when I go for my beach walk, or sometimes at night I listen to one in bed, or listen to a little YouTube video and just a bit of nighttime relaxation. And I always, well, not always, but quite often I get this little aha moment, which is like more of an understanding of, okay, I get it. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying I'm a hurt person. I haven't healed. I've done endless work, and this is all part of it. I'm constantly doing more. I'm constantly reading books. I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I'm constantly doing more studies and modalities and everything else you can think of, because I love this. I love learning about human behavior. And for me, I love it when I'm listening to something or I'm reading something and I'm like, mic drop. Okay. And I can reflect it back into my world and look at, okay, now I understand that. Now I understand what's happening. Man, I'm not saying I haven't understood what's happening in myself, but every now and then you have all these other things. And then it's like you're constantly digging deeper. You're constantly understanding more and more and more. It's fascinating. It really is. And I could just sit here and talk about this topic for hours. But this is the beauty of healing. There is so much in it about yourself that you can learn. There is so much goodness in it that you can take away from this. But it is, like I said, once you start going through that process, it's not something you can just stop doing. Like I remember when I started my whole self-development journey many, many years ago, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get off. I don't want to know. I don't want to be understanding of this. I just want to live my life where I just didn't care about any of this shit. But you can't. You can't jump off it. It's not a train. You can just get off. Once you start this journey, you're on it. But it is a beautiful journey. It really is. And I can guarantee you it does lead you to a much more happier, calm place. And that's the idea. Because I can tell you now, when I look back at where I was when I first broke up with my daughter's father, I was a shell. I was a shell of a person. He was a narcissist. He just destroyed me in every way possible. I was empty. I remember I was so broken one day. He sent me a text message, and this is shameful of me. I want to slap myself on the hands for saying this. But he sent me a text message that really worked me up so much. I threw my phone. I'm like, fuck. I threw my phone across the kitchen and it smashed. And I had to get a new phone after that. Anyway, the guy was so lovely when I got it, and he gave me a really good number because I told him what I'd been through. But, that's just what happens. You do get emotional. You do get triggered. Now, looking back at it, I'm like, I probably wouldn't even care. I probably wouldn't even respond. But that's the difference between being hurt back then as to where I am now. The difference between being hurt and healed. Back then, I was throwing phones, getting all emotional, getting crying. I was just getting all worked up. And that's why it's so important to remember it's not a process of just understanding your ex or understanding your breakup or letting go. There is so much more to it. It is all about understanding you. That's what I want everyone to remember. Healing is about you. Healing is about you finding and living your best possible life. That is the process, my friends. So if any of you haven't started yet and would like to, I'm here. I'm your girl. Let's start working together. And as I said at the start, if you're listening in real time, jump on. There is a 20% discount happening now. It's not going to last for much longer. It's a mid-year sale. Jump on. It's automatic. It's already there. You just need to jump on and book your sessions. Those links are in the show notes, or jump over and say hi over on Instagram at Life After Plus One, and I can send you the links there if you like. Or just come over and say hi, or tell me what you thought of the episode. I'm here. So I truly thank you all for listening. If you've come this far, thank you. And I really, really hope you have got something valuable from this episode, because like I said, I can just speak for hours on this topic. I love talking about this because it really is such a beautiful place to get to when you have worked through everything. It really is, and it is so worth it. Please reach out if you have any questions, if you want to share any feedback on the show. And don't forget, if you have any single parent friends that are needing some support, share the show, share my services, share it all. I am here to support you all through this journey of being single parent. So thank you all, and thank you for coming back week after week. Now, on that note, I didn't have an episode last week, but you know what? That's single parent life. But here I am. So thank you all. And until next time, I'll be in your ears then. Thank you for joining us on the Life After Plus One podcast. If you loved what you heard today and looking for some further support, then jump onto our website, lifeafterplusone.com. Plus, don't forget to check out our Instagram page for further resources and inspo. You can find all the links in the show notes. And remember, you're not alone on this path. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep exploring your amazing life after Plus One.